It was 6 a.m. Monday. At 6:45 a.m., I was backing out of our garage to go to work in Manhattan. We resided in Nassau Shores, a little suburban town on the south shore of Long Island near New York City. Before leaving the house, I paused in the driveway to ensure that the garage door was closed. I only forgot to check once, 2 weeks ago. Lauren contacted me at work, agitated, and accused me of not caring about her. Anyone could have come in and attacked her while I was away. Of course, I knew she was correct, so I stated that I had simply forgotten and would try not to forget again. This calmed down a little, but she still complained about how reckless I was. Did I really not care about her? How foolish could I be? I tried to soothe her by telling her that I hadn't done this in the 3 years we'd been in this house, and I would definitely avoid doing that again. For the past 2 weeks, she has continued to criticize me for this blunder. Things were clearly cool in our family, and I had no idea why she still had feelings for me. My name is Jeff Carlson, and Lauren is my wife. I'm 27 years old. My height is 170 centimeters. I have light brown hair that I keep long but not long enough to twist into a ponytail, and a close-cut beard. I am the head of the foreign exchange department at one of the country's leading commercial banks. Essentially, we take advantage of continually fluctuating global currency rates. The basic idea is to acquire a currency at a cheap price and then sell it for a profit as its value rises. This is not an exercise for the faint of heart. Essentially, we're gambling with the bank's money. This demands highly developed intuition and timing. Buying too early or too late and selling too early or too late can lose the bank hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. I obtained 2 promotions in the last 2 years because I have excellent intuition. Somehow, I know when to buy and when to sell. I'm not sure how my mind does this simply by looking at trends. I believe it is the proper thing to buy or sell, and my guesses have generally proven true. It didn't matter how often I made mistakes in my assumptions. When the bank officials realized how much money I had made for them over the previous 4 years, Lauren is also 27. Although she is a few months older than me, she stands 165 centimeters tall and has jet black hair styled just below her shoulders. She has a round face with gentle Italian features and olive Mediterranean complexion. She is visually gorgeous. At least that's what I believe. Perhaps I am biased. She has petite breasts, a slender waist, and a stunning ass. Not too big and not too little. She works in Huntington, New York, a town on Long Island's north coast that is approximately 25 minutes from our home. She works for a nationwide health insurance firm. They are part of the FDA, BP, and offer health insurance to federal and state personnel. She undertakes the majority of her job in the Huntington office, although they occasionally attend several insurer meetings and interact directly with employees to persuade them to sign up during open season. She has worked there for 2 years. Her immediate supervisor is Jim Beckman. She has been working for him since she was employed. I've only met him once or twice at corporate gatherings in the last 2 years. One was a Christmas celebration, while the other was a work picnic. He was taller than me, measuring 190 centimeters and weighed slightly more than 90 kilos. It is apparent that he trains frequently. He never done anything like that, but I simply didn't like him. Something about him bothers me. It was my intuition speaking again. There was something out of place there that disturbed me, but not enough to bring it up with Lauren. As I saw the garage door close, I turned on my satellite radio to a country western music channel. The tracks were slightly darker, which was just ideal for my mood. They sung about real issues like failing marriages, unrequited love, and cheating spouses. The first song I heard while driving down the street was about a guy who loved his pub. The melody was catchy, but I did not understand it. When the second song began, I drove through a red light and came to a stop. As I sat by the light source, it felt as if my eyes were opening for the first time in a long while. The performer sung about exactly what was going on in my marriage to Lauren. I didn't notice I was sitting at a traffic light with my lips open, listening to a music. When the cars behind me started honking their horns, I looked up, saw the green light, and began driving forward. I crossed the street and entered a shopping center parking lot. I sat and listened to the rest of the song before going to the train station. I must have been on autopilot since I cannot recall driving there. I sat on the early 6:30 train to Penn Station. I recall the first time I met Lauren. It was in July, shortly after my 16th birthday. I'd be a junior in high school when school resumed. I was mowing the lawn in front of my father's house when a cargo van pulled into the Miller's driveway 2 doors down. Old Miller died last year. Mrs. Miller was a nice but vulnerable woman. One of her children lived 2 towns away and invited her to live with them. As a result, the house was placed up for sale. I observed as the new BMW closely followed the moving van. Mr. Frank Scavo exited through the driver's door, while his wife Cheryl exited through the passenger's door. I didn't know their names at the time. The sight of her reappearing from the back seat was the most gorgeous I'd ever seen. Lauren Schiavo was a couple of months older than me. Her hair was trimmed short, giving her an elf-like appearance. She wore tight denim shorts and a tank top. She looked at me and smiled. For me, it was love at first sight. A few days later, after the relocation was completed, I was strolling down the street and noticed Lauren sitting outside with her mother. I'm not sure how I gained the guts to approach them and introduce myself. Cheryl Schiavo was a stunning woman in her own right. Lauren was a little version of her mother. Mrs. Schiavo was smart enough to recognize that I didn't want to chat to her and went inside the house to bring us some iced tea. After offering us tea, she went back inside, leaving us to sit on the porch and converse. I'm sure she overheard our talk when we sat on the porch. We got along really well, and I spent the remainder of the summer with Lauren. I told her about the school we would both be attending in the fall. I was simply glad to be in her company. July gave way to August, and school started. We weren't in the same class or doing the same courses, but we ate lunch together and took the same bus home every day. After only a week at the school, I discovered that they held a harvest dance in mid-October. The next day, Saturday, I observed Mrs. Schiavo and Lauren return home after food shopping. After the last bag of goods arrived, I went down to their house to assist with its delivery. I asked Lauren if she wanted to attend the dance with me. She looked at her mother and responded, "Yes." Her mom grinned. I later discovered that she truly liked me and thought I would be a wonderful fit for her kid. As September turned into October, I began to see Lauren less frequently than usual. She made new acquaintances with the cheerleaders. I knew she wanted to be a cheerleader from our chats over the summer, and she was doing it to earn a seat on the squad. I saw her on the bus every day, and we would always sit together and converse. The big day is finally here. I was going to brag about my girlfriend to all the males at school. I am sure none of them expected Lauren to be with a nerd like me. My father took us to school because I was too young to get a license. As we began dancing, I noticed a few members of the football team stare at us, and some of them chuckled and laughed together. I questioned what it all meant, but I chose to ignore about it and go sit with my friends and have fun. We danced a few times and then sat on the sidelines for a while until a slow song began playing. Before I could ask Lauren to dance, Billy Barber, the star linebacker, appeared and extended his hand to her, saying, "Come on, baby. It's time to let everyone know who you're actually with." Lauren jumped out of her seat and went without looking back. I sat with my mouth open. I looked back at my friends and inquired about what had occurred. My friend Jack commented, "It looks like you just got dumped." I looked at Lauren and Billy. It became clear that this was not their first time dancing together. I felt the color pour into my face. I felt so humiliated. I was made to look foolish. After the dance, Billy and Lauren went over to the football team's tables. Billy Barber was one of the biggest guys in school. I knew I wouldn't be able to beat him in a physical confrontation. I couldn't do anything except sit in my seat. I looked around, and everyone on the football team was laughing at me. Lauren, at least, did not turn around and join in their ridiculing of me. I sat at the table for the majority of the night. I wanted to leave, but I would not give them that pleasure. Billy came over to me, placed his hand on my shoulder, and whispered in my ear, "You did not believe a weakling like you could date a girl like Lauren, did you?" He stared at me and chuckled mockingly before walking away, shaking his head. Lauren did not return to the table or speak with me until the end of the dance. I noticed she was having a fantastic time with her new buddies. I wondered if she was laughing at me, too. Finally, the dance came to an end. I dreaded what I had to do next. I went over to where Lauren was seated with Billy and his friends. "Lauren, my father will be here soon, and I need to take you home," Billy responded. "Get lost, Carl, because she's heading home with me." "Lauren," I snapped. "I honestly don't care how you get home. If you don't come home with me, my father will be obliged to inform your mother that you fled with someone else. You can explain to your mother why you returned home with Billy." I turned and walked away. At that point, I didn't mind if she went home alone. Lauren soon took the seat next to me. She attempted to make small talk by asking, "Did you like the dance, Jeff?" I glanced at her with disgust and said, "Are you from another planet? You abandoned me for that moron Billy Barber. Clearly this was arranged in before. You didn't say anything else to me until the end of the dance, and now you want to know what happened." So, to answer your question, I did not have a good time tonight. Soon I noticed my father's automobile halt in front of the school. I rose up and approached his car. Lauren was taken aback by my rapid actions, and she nearly had to run after me. The windows of Dad's automobile were open because it was a nice and delightful autumn night. When we approached, he asked us, "Guys, did you enjoy the dancing?" I didn't respond. He made a strange face. I believe he sensed something was awry as we approached the automobile together. She waited at the back passenger door as I opened it and sat behind her. I had other planes. I opened the front passenger door, got inside, and closed it, allowing Lauren to climb inside herself. My dad was outraged. He urged me to step outside and open the door for my partner. I told him I'd do it if she was my girlfriend. I looked at my father, and his expression said, "What the hell is going on?" While I waited in deathly silence, Lauren opened the car's back door and entered. My father shrugged and drove us home. When we arrived at the house, there was silence. Zervos. Lauren's mother was waiting at the door. My father and Lauren stepped out of the car, but I simply sat there. Lauren's mother also sensed something was wrong. She knew I normally led Lauren to the door. Lauren passed by her mom, and I turned to look at her. I saw her mother look at my father inquisitively. Then she stared at me. Lauren turned to look behind her, and we both made eye contact. We attempted to read each other's expressions. Lauren's face was devoid of expression. The page was blank. If she could read my face, it must have been filled with scorn and rage. When Dad got back in the car, he asked me what had happened. I just informed him that at the dance, she met someone she loved better than me. I never informed him about her dishonesty. He told me to forget about her son. The sea is filled of fish. After that, we barely spoke. I sometimes passed past her house. She might wave or say, "Hello, Jeff." I've always ignored her. When I passed by one day while Mrs. Schiavo was out with Lauren, they both greeted me simultaneously. I said something profound. "Hi, Mrs. Schiavo. Isn't it a nice day?" I didn't speak to Lauren. She seemed to have vanished from my life. Lauren soon stopped trying to talk to me. Every morning I watched Billy Barber pick her up in his car with a group of other youngsters and leave her off after school. She joined the support crew. I made the honor roll. After high school, she went to work while I attended Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania on a full scholarship. My parents organized a lavish graduation celebration for me. The Schiavos were invited since they had become good friends with my parents. Lauren wasn't invited. My parents wanted it, but I informed them that if she was invited, I would not attend my own party. Mrs. Schiavo sat down next to me, which surprised me. She told me I was astonished when you came home the night of the dance. I felt you two would be a terrific couple. I am deeply sorry that something transpired between you two that night. We talked briefly about Wharton before she blurted out, "What happened to you two that night?" I gazed directly into her eyes. It was like peering into Lauren's future face, 20 years later. Older, yet still young, just like Lauren. I had never thought of her in that way before, and I instantly dismissed the concept. Finally, I told her that we had realized what we wanted out of life. That night, we realized they were two separate things. I wasn't quite ready to talk about Lauren's dishonesty. She appeared to be about to add something else, but then decided against it. She kissed me on the cheek, wished me luck, and then went. My new position at the bank began in mid-June. This gave me 1 month to find an apartment in New York that was convenient to work. I eventually settled on a 1-bedroom bathroom apartment in Soho, near Hudson Square. It was an excellent location because everything was within walking distance. There was no reason for an automobile. My new job was hectic, and I was still figuring out how everything worked. It took up all of my time. We did not have time to communicate. I rapidly discovered that what we learned in school and what is required in real-world situations are completely different realities. It had been 4 months since I last saw Mom and Dad. One evening, my mother called to welcome me home for the weekend. She said I may stay in my old room. This would not be an issue because half of my clothes were already there. Besides, I missed my mother's home-cooked meals. The most convenient way to get to my folks' residence was via train. They resided about 8 blocks north of the rail station. 4 blocks after I had walked, a car came up beside me, signaled a school buddy called Becca, reached out the window and said, "Hey, stranger, do you need a ride?" "Hell yes," I exclaimed. "It's unbearably hot here," jumping into the back seat. I noticed my old friend Jack behind the wheel. We sat on the side of the road and reflected on what had transpired in our life over the previous 4 years. It was enjoyable to be in the company of old friends. "I didn't realize you were a couple. How long does this last?" I asked. Becca extended her left hand to show me her wedding ring. "Are you married?" I inquired, surprised. "Jack has answered with a smile for the past 2 years." "I had no idea," I responded somewhat sadly. "I have not been a good friend for the previous 4 years, have I?" "This is crazy," Becca said. "We did not contact you either. It is just life. Thank you for that." Becca was my relieved reaction. "I'm very delighted to see you all again." At those remarks, I noticed an idea emerge in Jack's head. It was an idea that should have been considered more carefully, but he simply blurted it out. What he said next transformed my life. "Listen, Jeff, we are holding a party at our house tomorrow night. Would you like to come and sit in the back seat?" I saw Becca turn and stare at Jack. It was a look that men began to recognize as soon as they married. This signified, "Are you crazy? Say nothing." If I had comprehended this expression, I would have declined the invitation. Because I am simply a dude and have no idea what this means. Look, I believe I made the wrong decision. "Of course. That's great. I wished I could. Will any of our old school classmates be present?" Becca turned. I received a profound gaze and replied, "Sure, there must be several of them." "Great, I cannot wait. I will bring some beer. What time and place do you live now?" Jack mentioned 730. "We reside at 135 Ransom Street, which is not far from your folks." Jack pushed the car into motion, and we drove the 4 short blocks to my parents' house. I stepped out of my car and said, "See you tomorrow evening." It was good to see my parents, but I couldn't wait till Saturday night. Things must have altered during the past 4 years. I realized I had changed. It would be wonderful to see old acquaintances and renew friendships at the celebration. I chatted with Kenny Carter, whose father ran a fence company. He had taken over the family firm, and we were discussing how the company was doing amid the economic slump. When I felt a tap on my shoulder and heard, "Hi, neighbor. I haven't seen you in a long time." Looking over my shoulder, I noticed her. Lauren was standing next to a girl I didn't know. She was as stunning and attractive as ever. Still, Billy Barber's smiling face and Lauren's back. Walking away from me was all I could think about. I turned my back to continue speaking with Kenny, but the other girl tugged on my shoulder and smiled. "That was rude, buddy. Not as harsh as what she did to me." I snapped back. "Jeffrey, please. You can't still be angry with me from that night. It's been 6 years," Lauren said. "I'm certain I can," I exclaimed violently, turning and walking away behind me. I overheard Becca exclaim loudly, "See, that's why." Becca dashed over to console Lauren and her friend, while Jack led me out onto the outer terrace. Jack informed me that I needed to make things right for Becky. He wanted me to apologize to Lauren. He begged me, otherwise he wouldn't have privacy tonight. Friends don't leave friends unattended, so I accepted it and went to hunt for Lauren. "I found these 3 in the kitchen. Could you leave? I want to chat to Lauren alone." Lauren's pal spit. "No way, let her alone, bastard." Becca jumped in, stating they were truly old friends. "Allow them to talk." Both girls left. Lauren and I are alone. We had a few awkward seconds of silence before I decided to take action. "Lauren, I'd like to apologize for what I said. I understand you didn't expect this. What occurred that night seems so long ago. I have to tell you that my feelings and ego were seriously hurt, and it came from an unexpected source. I placed a great deal of trust in you. Maybe it's time to leave everything behind. No, you're correct, Jeff. I did something false. Wasn't I acting like a little shit? I absolutely earned everything you said tonight. I've never apologized for what I did. Would you accept my apologies now? Thank you, Lauren, and certainly I accept your apologies. Lauren jumped into my arms and embraced me. We peered into each other's eyes before kissing Becca. When Jack stepped into the kitchen, Becca commented, "Damn me, honey, it looks like you really knew what you were doing." Jack sighed with relief and pushed out his chest, saying, "Damn right, and don't forget it." We all laughed and joined the party. Lauren and I began dating and were married 9 months later. The conductor called the next stop, returning me to the present. As the train moved away from the station, I mentally replayed the last 3 months of my marriage. I was certain of it. My wife cheated on me in our marriage. It felt strange to draw such a conclusion based on a country western song, but everything fit. I was certain of it, especially since the small voice that had previously been so comforting to me when telling me to purchase this currency or sell that currency was now sounding alarms that I couldn't dismiss. When I passed Howard Goldman on my way to my office, he stared at me oddly. I dropped heavily into my chair, Howard right beside me. "What is wrong with you this morning?" he asked. "Nothing," was my monosyllabic response. Howard responded, "Bullshit. I am paid a lot of money to make sure that all of my employees are happy and satisfied when they come to work, from the state you're in. I can say that nowadays. I won't let you play with the bank's money. Please tell me what is wrong. Or go home." I exhaled. "Are you certain you want to be involved in this, Howard?" He nodded in agreement. I stared at him and shook my head. Then I blurted out, "I believe Lauren is having an affair." Howard's face was shocked. "Are you sure?" asked Howard. I responded, "No, it is not like that. It's only a feeling. I understand that your feelings are typically correct," he admitted. "So don't disregard them. What are you planning to do?" "I am not sure. I just found out today." I responded, "Don't worry about anything. I will support you no matter what you decide. Please let me know after you've decided what you want to do. My door is always open. I do not want you to spend too much bank money today." Howard insisted that he did not think you were at the top of your game. Of course, I knew he was correct. I let my employees perform the most of the job that day, and for the 2 weeks following that, I believe they appreciated the freedom to work without my participation. Maybe my presence was too visible for them to feel at ease having me around. I went up, closed and secured the door, and sat down. Tears welled up in my eyes and rolled down my cheeks. What kind of person was I? I wasn't even sure what was happening, and I was already crying. I contemplated life without Lauren. I adored this woman from the moment I first saw her. I did not believe I could move on if I lost her. I rested my head on the table and closed my eyes, lost in my pain. I'm not sure how long I was in that position, but somewhere along the road the pain evolved into something else. I no longer experienced agony. I got enraged. I contemplated going home and confronting Lauren. That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? What evidence did I possess? I had lyrics to a country song. No, I'd have to have proof. I'd need to make a plan. I'd make her pay. I would also need the person who did this to pay. I wanted them to feel the same emotions that I did. They would experience pain. I'd take care of it. I needed to formulate a plan soon. When I left work, the first thing I did was purchase many voice-triggered digital voice recorders and position them in discreet locations throughout the house. I've placed them in the bedrooms, baths, and garage, places where she could speak with someone without needing to use the phone. I then attached the recorder to the furnace. I determined that was all I needed to catch her. I'll just keep an eye out for it, and it'll come out eventually. I tried to seem regular around Lauren, but I guess I wasn't doing a good job. I set up the recorders on Wednesday, and by Friday, I had the first evidence of Lauren's betrayal. The incriminating chat on Friday went like this. "Jim, this is Lauren. Why are you phoning me at my home? What if my wife answers the phone?" Jim Beckman let out a bark. "Do not worry. I would make up an excuse for work. I believe we should back off a little. Jeff is acting strangely. Was he accusing you of anything?" "No, he is behaving unusually. He appears chilly and distant. Maybe we should just relax for a time." "Okay, if you believe it is better this way." Jim became irritated, and then an idea occurred to him. "Lauren, you are aware that in 2 weeks I will be departing for Miami. Why don't I ask Fred whether he'd want to accompany me? Then we could have a week together." "What are your thoughts?" he asked. "I do not know." He might not have done it if he hadn't been so amusing. The way he acts may make him. Well, I don't know. I do not want to make him suspicious. I could ask him what he does. If he acts strangely, I can tell if he knows anything. Let me check with Fred. If he accepts, you can inform Jeff that this is a work trip. Jim laughed happily. I'll chat to you tomorrow. Bye. So now I know for certain. Previously, it was merely lyrics to a song. Now it was genuine. Lauren cheated on me. She intends to travel away for a week to cuckold me with this asshole Beckwith. When I realized this, I was struck with despair. I felt sad for Lauren. I was saddened by our marriage. The melancholy eventually evolved into anguish. How could she have done this to us? How could she have done this to me? My anguish transformed into rage once more. If she cheated, I would obtain proof and seek a divorce. I'd need a plan, and I did not have one yet. I arrived home from work at my normal time, 7:30 p.m. Trading was unusually active. Everyone will tell me how well I do my job when the market opens tomorrow. There were millions of dollars at stake, and my mind was not where it should be. My wife was preparing dinner. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my lips. She acted as if she was pleased to see me. This has not happened very often in recent months. I was waiting for Lauren to contact me regarding her business trip to Miami on Monday and Tuesday. I expected it, but it didn't arrive. I spent many hours outside working in the yard or on our cars, doing anything but spending time with your wife. I was afraid I would reveal everything I knew about her cheating. I knew tonight was the night. I hoped that I could pull off my own lie. It was a challenging day. I replied, "I am glad to see you are in a good mood. I'm happy, and I hope you'll be happy too after I tell you my good news. My day wasn't that wonderful. You talk first." I said, "Okay." Lauren chuckled. "I was asked to go to South Beach for a seminar on the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. It's an all-expenses-paid stay at the Victor Hotel, one of the old Art Deco hotels on Ocean Avenue in the heart of South Beach." She shouted again. "The bad thing is that I won't be here from Friday this week to Saturday next. I'll be gone for 9 days, honey. Do you mind if I go?" She looked straight into my eyes. She cocked her head slightly to the side, trying to figure out if I had seen through her deception or if I was just angry that she would be gone for so long. When I looked into her eyes again, I saw that they were full of excitement. But somewhere in the depths, there was a hint of sadness. 9 days is a long time, honey. Do you have to leave? Is it something that will be used against you if you don't do it? I asked. I don't know, Jeff. Perhaps this is true. I know that Mr. Beckman counts on my help at this seminar. This will be a feather in my cap if I do go, she added. I walked to the front door and looked out onto the front lawn. I knew that if I said yes, our marriage would be over. If I had said no, it would have been over anyway. Over the previous 4 days, I had made a plan, and now I had made a decision. I whispered quietly, "If it's important to you or your work, of course you can go." "When are you leaving?" I asked. "Did I not hear you? Did you say I could go?" she asked incredulously. I could not say these words because I knew that my voice would tremble. I simply nodded my head affirmatively. Lauren ran up to me and hugged me tightly, saying, "Thank you, thank you. This means so much to me. I promise you won't regret it. I've already done it." Lauren was scheduled to fly out of Kennedy Airport at 10:30 in the morning on Friday. I told Lauren I'll take the day off from work to take you to the airport. Lauren looked surprised and suggested, "You don't have to take the day off, honey. Mr. Beckman volunteered to drive me. Never. You're leaving me for 9 days, and I want to be there to see you off." What could she say? I'm sure she'd rather go with Mr. Asshole Beckman, but I wonder what that would look like for her unwilling husband. Her momentary disappointment quickly gave way to a smile as she happily sang, "That's great, honey. I wish you could take me with you." What a great liar she was. I knew that I had upset the lover's plan just a little, and I felt a little satisfaction. She let her guard down just for a second, allowing her frustration to show. If I hadn't been so knowledgeable, I'm sure I would have missed it. Thursday morning found me, plopped down in a large chair in Howard's office with the words, "It's this weekend." Lauren is going on a business trip to Miami South Beach, no less. They leave on Friday morning and return the following Saturday. There was a fire in Howard's eyes as he told me, "Whatever you want to do, you're safe." Yesterday I spoke with Mr. Diamond about your situation, and he gave you carte blanche on the company credit card. You will have to reimburse the bank for all non-business expenses within 2 weeks of your return. When I asked Howard how I could repay Mr. Diamond, he laughed. A good single malt Scotch whiskey will be enough to pay. You probably don't know this, but he really screwed up his divorce last year. He hates cheating wives. I shook my head in disgust. I knew he was divorced and I didn't know why, but now I know. Howard, I need the next 2 weeks of vacation. I need proof of her infidelity. Spend as much time as necessary. Within reason, of course. I will keep a watch on your team to ensure that they do not make too many mistakes. I hope this is all a mistake. Lauren is a beautiful girl. I still cannot believe it. Howard stated that I, too, find it difficult to believe this. I thought I had the rest of the day off to go shopping. Before departing, I went online and bought a round-trip ticket to Miami International Airport on JetBlue Airways. I dropped by City Camera and bought a top-of-the-line Canon digital camera. It will capture crystal-clear photos and videos with sound. It came equipped with a detachable optical zoom lens. The salesman stated that I could see an eagle's from 100 meters away. Then I purchased a little carry-on bag. Then a trip to Walmart to get new clothes, shorts, tops, underwear, sneakers, and sandals. The final piece was a New York Yankees cap. Lauren, a die-hard Mets fan, would never have believed I'd wear a Yankees cap. All of the lids had patriotic phrases, flags, and eagles. I didn't normally wear shirts like these. The final visit was the drugstore, where I purchased fresh razors and a box of black hair dye. Now I was prepared for my excursion. I placed the new luggage in the trunk of my automobile. All purchases were made on a corporate card. If Lauren looked at our bank accounts, she would have no idea. I was ready. Let the games begin. That evening at home, I inquired about Lauren's vacation itinerary. She was on a JetBlue aircraft from JFK at 10:30 a.m. and was staying in room 314 at the Victor Hotel. Mr. Beckman, as I was informed, was staying in another room. Of course, it was him. I was due to fly to Miami in 3 hours after her. I was also able to get a room at the Victor Hotel. I would be in room 541. I hope I don't get caught checking in. We got up early on Friday morning since we planned to arrive at the airport by 8 a.m., so Lauren would have no trouble going through security on her way to Kennedy Airport. The talk was quiet. She tried to strike up a conversation, but I wasn't too sociable. The realization that I was driving my wife to the airport to encourage an affair had a profound effect on me. Her acts destroyed my heart and left me very hurt. I'm having trouble hiding my emotions. Jeff, are you upset? Would you mind if I went on this trip? You said it's fine if I go. I know what I said, Lauren, but the thought of you being gone for 9 days really blows my mind. I know you need to leave. I don't want to be apart from you for too long. I'll miss you so much. It already saddens me to understand you're leaving. I said, I know you understand, Lauren responded. Of course, I get it. I feel the same way. It will be a long, lonely 9 days apart from you. Perhaps so. But I'll be hanging around at our house alone while you rest in a fancy hotel in South Beach with the stars. I groaned. Lauren laughed. Is this what is bothering you? This trip will undoubtedly be primarily work, with little time for recreation. I looked at her and smiled sadly. I knew she was lying. After that, we chatted briefly before pulling into a short-term parking lot. We went to the JetBlue check-in counter, dropped off Lauren's luggage, and collected her boarding card. We neared the roped-off security area, and I noticed Beckman waiting for Lauren out of the corner of my eye. Lauren glanced swiftly to see how I reacted to him. Beckman had the guts to approach us, kiss Lauren on the cheek, and then offer me his hand. All I wanted to do was bash the guy up, but I worked hard to appear innocuous and approachable. I truly grinned as we shook hands. I knew I was going to get my ass kicked because he was 6'1" and much heavier than me. I would have at least delivered the initial crushing blow. Maybe that's enough. However, fighting was not part of the plan. Jim spoke up. Lauren, we need to start a security check right away. It's good to see you again, Jeff. I will look after Lauren while she is away. I stood there, staring at him long and intently. Lauren's face became pallid. She instantly recovered her senses. Jeff, Jim is saying that nothing awful will happen to me while I'm gone. I turned to Lauren and whispered sternly, I understand what he means, Lauren. I smiled at Beckman and thanked him for looking after her, thinking I had been duped. Their expressions brightened as they turned to walk past the security gate. Beckman was the first to pass through the gate and begin his descent along the roped-off area. Lauren was going to hand over her documentation to the massive black female TSA agent. I grabbed her arm and drew her back towards me. "Are you leaving, but have not said goodbye to your husband?" I asked. Lauren looked at me shamefully and hugged and kissed me, saying, "Of course, how foolish of me." I hugged her firmly and told her I needed to talk to her before she left. "We've never been apart for this long before. I want you to know that I've loved you since I was 16 years old." Lauren smiled and was going to say something when I started talking again. "You are departing on an aircraft, and I shall travel home alone. Anything may happen to us. If for any reason you never see me again, I want you to. That you are the greatest thing that has ever occurred to me, and I grow to adore you more each day. If anything happens to you, I will be unable to continue living." I kissed and held her, saying, "I love you." "Have a safe vacation and get back home safely," Lauren said. "I love you too, honey. But now I have to leave." When she began to move away from me, I grabbed her hand and drew her back toward me. I had to ask her again not to leave. She seemed surprised as I spun her around to face me. "Lauren, I know I told you it was okay to leave. I meant what I said. Now that you're leaving, I know I don't want you to go. It isn't too late. Tell him you can't and come home with me. You may blame everything on me." "What are your thoughts, Jeff? You know I can't give up on Mr. Beckman at this late hour, especially when tickets have already been booked and paid for. Furthermore, he needs me at the seminar. I realize I'm being selfish, but I do not want you to leave. I need you to, Jeff. I need to go. Do not try to stop me. My decision has been made. I'm going on this voyage. I will be a huge assistance to Jim. I cannot let him down." She looked me in the eyes again and was about to speak, but then changed her mind. She turned, walked to the gate, and handed the agent her documents. My eyes were watery as I realized she was lying. I'm sure Lauren assumed it was because she was moving away and I'd miss her. I stepped over the roped-off area to where Beckman waited. Lauren moved towards us, and I observed her briefly while she spoke with the TSA agent. I could see she was excited. I was curious what they were talking about that made her so agitated. By the time she arrived where we were standing, she regained her composure. They proceeded to the machines to get x-rays of their possessions. I watched Lauren remove her shoes and place them in a small basket. She looked at me and shrugged. "Do you know what you can do?" Gesture. She then turned and walked through the body scanner. By then, I had reached my limit of endurance and had to leave the building swiftly. I wasn't angry anymore. I just accepted that Lauren was no longer mine. I was starting to accept the notion that we would soon be separated. I transferred my car from short-term to long-term parking, picked up my carry-on luggage, and returned to the terminal. I waited until the departure board said Lauren's jet had departed before going through security myself. I sat down to eat breakfast and wait for my flight. I arrived at the hotel by taxi and checked in with no issues. The hair salon on site was open. I asked him to shave my face and give me a really short crew haircut. Once in my room, I dyed my hair black. When I finished, I looked in the mirror and wondered if my mother would recognize me. Wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, I could go around the hotel without fearing that Beckman or Lauren would recognize me. The hotel itself was intriguing. It was constructed in the shape of a U, the center of the U. I was looking at Ocean Avenue. Lummis Park is located beyond Ocean Avenue, followed by the Atlantic Ocean. Lauren and Jim's room was on the third floor, in the U's right wing. My room was in the Youth Center, room 541, and it had a fantastic view of the ocean. In addition to the reception area, the ground floor had shops and boutiques. The second story of the structure included an outdoor swimming pool in the center. It spanned the length of the arms in a U form, with lounge chairs positioned around the pool. Towels and drinks were supplied on my room's balcony. I had a view of the entire pool. The park embankment entrance is located across the road. The ocean view was wonderful. In different conditions, this might have been a wonderful setting. This time, it was not romantic at all. Around 8 o'clock, I made the obligatory phone call to Lauren. She took up the phone and said, "Hi, honey. I am delighted you phoned. I contacted your house multiple times, but you did not return the calls. I was concerned about you." "Where have you been?" she asked. I went to a nearby tavern with the guys from work. They raved about a club and convinced me to go. That is all. I responded. She had the audacity to warn, "You should not hit on any girls there, Jeff. Remember, you're a married man. I'm not sure I could forgive you if you did that. I thought this woman had balls. She's here to continue her affair with Beckman, and she tells me not to start my own. Why do you think I'd cheat on you? Have you ever had reason to suspect me of betraying you or our marriage? You know me better than anyone else. I could never injure you by doing something so shady as this." Now I pushed harder. "I know you would never do anything like that to me. That is why I let you travel on this trip to Florida. I absolutely trust you. I trust you with my heart and even my life. You already know it." "Do you understand?" I asked. "Of course, honey. I feel the same way. I'm not sure why I said this. I know you wouldn't do that to me," she stammered. "Look, Jeff, I'm exhausted from the airline travel, and I think it's making me irritable. You call tomorrow, and I will be in a better mood, okay?" "Of course." "Lauren," I said, "we can talk tomorrow. Good night, Jeff. I love you." Lauren continued, suddenly tired of the verbal sparring. I simply murmured, "Good night, Lauren," and hung up. Did she notice this? I didn't say I her either. Would she care? I thought I had a restless night in bed. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind could only guess what was going on in room 314. I awoke on Saturday morning with no light or dawn. I was already awake and seeing the sun rise over the Atlantic Ocean, so woke is the wrong term. My objective was to search down the traders around the hotel, but after breakfasting on scrambled eggs and pancakes, I realized that my room was all I needed. I spent time on the balcony. I was sitting in a chair enjoying the sunshine. As I sneaked into my room, I caught a glimpse of Lauren strolling toward the pool with this moron. An idea came to me. The room contains 2 huge artificial plants in flower pots. If I stood on the balcony, I could observe the pool without being detected, trying not to make a noise. I carried both plants to the balcony and positioned a chair behind them. I then went inside to retrieve my camera and tripod and position them such that the camera lens protruded through the artificial greenery. I was confident that no one would notice the lens. Lauren and Beckman were already reclining in lounge chairs, talking. Lauren sat facing the U-shaped armrests. It was their room. Lauren was closest to me, and Beckman was on the opposite side. Lauren had already done some shopping for this trip, I noticed. She donned a red bikini with a provocative top that highlighted her cleavage. The bottom was cut so high that I was confident half of her buttocks would be visible when she stood up. I turned on the camera and focused on the unfaithful couple. I quickly recognized there was a weakness in my idea. I could not hear what they were saying. I needed to understand what they were talking about. I have an idea, and we can work on it later. I waited a half hour before noticing the first hints of adultery. Beckman, God bless his passionate heart, kissed her on the lips. Over the next hour, I saw 3 more kisses before they stood up to depart. I saw that I was correct. Worse, they left holding hands. Anyone could see they were a couple. When they went, I switched off the camera. I fell on the bed when I returned to my room. A solitary tear fell from my eye. I felt sad and fatigued. Seeing Lauren cheat was far harder than suspecting it. This emotion went fast. I took out my laptop and searched for spy stores in the South Beach area. Fortunately, there was one on Collins Avenue, a short walk from the hotel, wearing a ghillie suit and moving rapidly. I was shortly back in my hotel room with what I needed, another tripod and a high-quality parabolic microphone. It could link to my camera, allowing me to add audio to the video I was recording. The microphone was put on a new tripod beside the camera. Next time, I'll be able to hear what they're saying. I awoke on Sunday morning with a start. It was bright and sunny outside. I was fatigued after getting very little sleep on Friday night. After dinner on Saturday night, I fell asleep and slept all night. Looking at the clock, I noticed that it was 10 a.m. Lauren and Beckman could have already left the hotel, wasting the entire day. I went to the bathroom and did my morning rituals. After getting dressed, I strolled out onto the balcony and spotted Lauren and Beckman exiting Lammas Park. I turned on the camera and microphone, then called Lauren. I listened to what the camera had recorded. I heard Lauren's phone ring. The parabolic microphone functioned exactly as I had planned. Lauren looked at the phone when Beckman questioned, "Who is this idiot?" Lauren responded with a laugh. Beckman also laughed. Lauren, suddenly worried, stated, I need to answer the phone. Something horrible might have happened. Why else would he be calling on Sunday morning? She accepted the challenge. Jeff, is everything okay? Did something happen? She asked. I got the impulse to say something. There will be no BS. But I controlled my rage. Instead, I responded, It's all right, honey. I was lonely and only wanted to hear your voice. It's nice to know you care about me. Jeff, I constantly worry about you. It's Sunday morning and I suspected something horrible had happened. You terrify the crap out of me. Lauren snapped, annoyed. I was angry up with Lauren's attitude and told her I had no idea I would be like this. Lauren, does it bother you? I felt alone. I figured talking to my wife would raise my mood. Sorry for bothering you. She began to respond, but I hung up before she could finish her thought. Do not worry, she said into the silent phone. I overheard her conversing on a turned-off phone via a parabolic microphone. She turned off her phone and walked to the nearest bench. What did he want? Asked Beckman. He was lonely and wanted to communicate with me. Why did I assault him like that? Lauren asked this question to herself rather than to Beckman. Beckman did, however, share his opinion. Lauren, we've been having an affair for 6 months now. Maybe you're growing tired of him. Perhaps it's time to let him go. Get divorced. I slipped him and he proposed we spend more time together once we weren't hiding. Surprise. Okay, she snapped. Your wife will not object if we visit your home for a matinee. Will she have anything at home? Yes, she said mockingly. We will no longer have to hide on the bed. Lauren grinned. And eventually, Jim, you earn $38,000 per year. You have little chance of attaining more since Jeff's last promotion and his year-end bonus. He earns about $200,000 each year. Jim, I like you, but you're not really excellent. Jeff is good at this, so I won't miss out on anything. But eventually, he will be the CEO of this bank, and I plan to be there to celebrate it with him, so there will be no divorce. Get that concept out of your mind. Besides, you won't divorce Jane. You will never leave your 2 children either. So quit bothering me about the divorce. You're correct, Beckman responded almost shyly. But that doesn't mean we can't have fun together while we're here, right? That's correct. My wife smiled and took his hand. She hauled him across the street, out of view. I thought, 6 fucking months. I cheated for 6 fucking months. She simply stayed with me for the money I could earn. I couldn't get those insensitive statements out of my brain. This should not have happened. Not if I can help it. I wondered if I'd had enough of it. Enough to get a divorce on my own terms. I felt I needed more. I was determined to acquire it. Lauren and Beckman were really willing to assist me in obtaining the necessary evidence. They didn't realize it at the time. Lauren was walking towards the pool again at 2 o'clock, this time wearing a tangerine cape. Beckman was standing just behind her. I rapidly turned on the camera and microphone, then rotated the camera until they were in the viewfinder. Beckman sat down, but Lauren remained standing with her back to him. She turned and removed the blankets. I was astonished, and I'm sure Beckman was as well. Lauren was not wearing a top. Beckman looked at her and Lauren chuckled, asking, Do you like it? I like it. Beckman answered. She was wearing, or almost wearing, the thinnest tangerine-colored bikini bottoms. Lauren asked her to apply the cream. She gave Beckman a bottle of lotion. He took the bottle and started applying. He responded, I can't. Look at what you did to me. Miss said that at that moment, one of the hotel personnel approached them. Some people reported that you were displaying nudity near the pool. Such rallies are prohibited on hotel grounds. I must suggest that you cover yourself. They returned to the sanctuary of their room. I checked the camera to ensure that it was recording what was happening. And so it was. I felt like I'd had enough. If I could just get them to work, this would be over. I did not call Lauren that Sunday night. I called earlier. I felt like I had been rejected. Lauren did not, however, call me. On Monday morning, I got up at 9 a.m. I ordered breakfast as usual. I decided to watch from my balcony and see what I might catch with my new camera. It wasn't until 6 p.m. I noticed something fascinating. The doors of their chamber swung open and Beckman stepped onto the balcony. He was wearing one of the hotel's free, thick cotton robes. The robe was in the front, and he stood with both hands on the railing, gazing out at the pool. I pointed my video and audio equipment at the balcony and began recording. Lauren came out in the same robe. I was able to film evidence of their cheating. This was the type of incriminating material I'd need to establish adultery. It wouldn't matter in court, but it might matter to Lauren's mother and father, as well as friends and family. The entire video was shot in public and would be admissible in any court. After observing the spectacle from the hotel balcony, I concluded that my marriage was over. Video was now conclusive evidence that she had been unfaithful. Perhaps I should provide additional evidence. She revealed as much during a Sunday morning phone conversation. It was difficult to hear about, but it was awful to behold. I decided I'd had enough. I'll be leaving tomorrow. I used my phone to confirm that my flight would leave at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Fortunately, there were some unoccupied seats. It's been half an hour since I witnessed Lauren cheat. I wondered if they'd previously done this. I wondered if they were still doing this. I figured that now would be a good time to call my beloved wife every evening. I hoped it would distract me at the appropriate time. I called Lauren on her cell phone, and she answered on the 5th ring. What a surprise. She appeared out of breath. "Hello?" she mumbled. "Lauren," I inquired with anxiety in my voice. "Are you okay?" You took a long time to answer the phone and seemed out of breath. I needed to give her credit. Lauren was a clever liar when she responded. I was in the shower when the phone rang. I grabbed a towel and dashed to take the phone. "You should have noticed me sitting naked on the bed. I believe you would have some dirty ideas." "I am sure I would, baby. I'm phoning to see how your day went. Did you have a productive seminar?" She stammered. "Lee, yes, Jeffrey, we had a great day at the seminar." I heard something in her response. It was in her voice. "This struck me by surprise," she said. "How was your day, honey? I feel unhappy and sorry for myself. I miss your lovely voice. I miss holding you and getting kissed back. What I miss the most is you sleeping with me in bed at night. When you are not here to share this bed with me, it becomes huge and lonely. But I don't need to tell you that you feel the same way. You understand what it is like to wake up alone in the morning. Do you spend your nights alone, Lauren?" So I finally threw it out there. I wondered what she'd say. All I heard was a muted chat. "Lauren, are you here?" I asked. "You sleep alone, correct?" Then she returned. "That's correct, honey. That is true." She lied. "Listen, Jeff, I'm freezing wet and I need to leave. I'll chat to you tomorrow." "Fine." I didn't respond. "I love you," she said. I responded. "That's correct. Goodbye, Lauren." I hung up. I packed my tripod and microphone. Then I packed the few clothes I had with me. It's been a long time since my last ate. I changed my clothes and headed down to the hotel restaurant to eat. I took my camera with me to see today's film as the hostess led me to a table. I noticed Lauren and Beckman sitting in a booth. I walked right past them and sat at a seat away from them and somewhat behind. I stood behind Lauren and faced Beckman. I was able to take a few photos without their noticing. When the waitress served my lunch, Lauren cast a peek at me. But she showed no worry. She plainly did not recognize me. I must have resembled any other tourist. I completed my dinner while looking at my camera's daytime shots, sneaking a look at the two lovebirds. Lauren sent another glance my way, but her expression was unrecognizable. I finished my meal and departed first, and they were still sitting in the booth, and it was hard to fall again. The next day, at 7 a.m., I got up and sat on the balcony. I moved the plants back into the room. I no longer cared if they noticed me. I had the proof that I needed. Not that I really wanted to find anything. I did not wish to locate any evidence. I was relishing the morning when I noticed a white van with blue Phoebe lettering on the side come up at 715, which made me unhappy because I had evidence that Lauren was cheating. Lauren and Beckman got into the vehicle and it drove away. Damn me, I believe they had done some work this week. This morning, I had 2 tasks to accomplish. First, I acquired access to one of the hotel's 2 public computers. I printed 2 photos I've shot since I arrived here. I immediately approached the front desk and asked who would be staffing the counter on Saturday morning. I discovered that it was a young man named Carlos. We chatted, and I gave him $200. If all went smoothly, Lauren and Beckman would be in for a pleasant surprise when they left on Saturday morning. I checked out and traveled back to New York to take care of matters at home. Why did I begin cheating on Jeff? I was bored. I was lonely. I needed some excitement in my life. Perhaps it was simply because I could. Jeff was gone for more than 14 hours a day, returning home between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. I worked until 4:30. This allowed me ample time to do whatever I wanted. Jim was quite flirtatious and gorgeous. We grew closer over time while working together. We trusted one another when we should have trusted our wives. Jim kissed me one afternoon after we had been flirting. We swiftly parted ways. We drew away. Both were embarrassed, smiled, and then started laughing nervously. I was perplexed too. I enjoyed the kiss, but I knew it was wrong. After all, I was a married woman. Jim approached me again as we were still laying out the materials. "Lauren, that kiss was something special. I want to kiss you again," he told me, looking into my eyes. He kissed me again. We made love. It was his mischief that made him special. That's what was missing in my life. A feeling of excitement. I was no longer bored. Now I look forward to every day and the opportunity to be with Jim. Looking back now, I think Jim and I would agree that it was one huge mistake. I fooled myself into thinking I didn't love Jeff as much as I should. I'm reminded of the old saying, "You don't know what you have until you lose it." It was all Jim's idea, a stupid trip to Florida. I should have known better. Jeff has been acting strange lately. He was somehow cold and aloof. I called Jim and told him that we would have to back off and cool it down for a while. Then he came up with this stupid idea to take me on a business trip to Florida. It really sounded exciting to go to South Beach on the arm of a big, handsome man. I don't know how he managed it, but he persuaded our manager to include me on the trip. It's hard for me to remember the exact words that were said. Jeff may remember it differently, but that's how I remember it. I remember the night I told Jeff. He entered through the front door. He threw his briefcase on the table and remarked, "It was a hard day." "I'm glad to see you're in a good mood," I responded. "I am happy, and I hope that you will be happy too, after I tell you my good news." I beamed. "My day. Wasn't that great? You talk first, okay?" I giggled. I was asked to go to South Beach for a seminar on the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. This is an all-expenses-paid stay at the Victor Hotel, one of the old Art Deco hotels on Ocean Avenue in the heart of South Beach. The bad news is that I won't be here from Friday this week to Saturday. Next week, I'll be gone for 9 days. "Honey, do you mind if I go?" He didn't seem happy, sad, angry, or even surprised by the news. This should have been another hint that not everything was as it seemed. I thought he would be upset. I thought he would object that he didn't want me to go there without him. I looked into his eyes to understand how he felt. His eyes were fixed on mine, and he asked without any emotion. "Is it important for your work to go on this trip?" I told him. "Perhaps I will be passed over for a future promotion if I am unable to travel." He stood up and walked to the front door, looking at the front lawn for a few moments. Then he almost whispered something that I could barely understand. I thought he said everything was fine. I asked him, "Did you just say that I can go?" Still standing in the doorway and looking out, he nodded his head affirmatively. He never looked at me. He nodded his head. Yes, I could go. I felt so relieved. I was sure that if he looked at me, he could see the lie on my face. Now I was sure that he knew nothing about my affair with Jim. Jeff would never have let me leave if he did right. I felt dizzy like a schoolgirl. I walked up to Jeff and hugged him, saying, "You won't regret this." When he didn't answer, I ran to the phone. I should have told Jim. "Jim, Jeff said I could go to Florida with you." I laughed and giggled the whole time I was talking to Jim. One day I finally looked at Jeff. He stood at the table watching and listening to the telephone conversation. When I looked in his direction, he turned and walked out the door. He still had the same blank look on his face. Where the hell was my head? After the phone call, we spent a quiet evening at home. Jeff sat alone, staring out the window, lost in his own thoughts. It finally dawned on me that he didn't want me to go on this trip. However, he wouldn't stand in my way if it meant promotion. That's exactly what I thought. If only I knew his plan. I had to do this. It was so unlike Jeff to agree so easily to my request to leave without him. This should have raised warning signs in my eagerness to spend time with Jim. I didn't heed the warnings. Jim wanted to take me to the airport, but Jeff wouldn't hear of it. He insisted and took time off from work to take me to the airport. The trip passed in silence. Jeff was acting funny. I felt that something was wrong and asked him, "Jeff, are you upset? Would you mind if I went on this trip?" He replied that he would be lonely and miss me while I was gone. I assured him that this would be a work trip with no time for rest at the airport. Jim came up to me, kissed me hello in front of Jeff, and made some stupid comment about how he would take care of me on the trip. I felt Jim had ruined everything. Jeff gave Jim a glare. I quickly persuaded Jeff that Jim meant that nothing bad would happen to me. Jeff turned to me and said, "Lauren, I understand what he means." I exhaled a sigh of relief as he went back to Jim and said, "Thank you for looking after her." Jim persuaded us to pass through security. He passed first, and as I was about to hand over my boarding card and driver's ID to the TSA official, Jeff pulled me back. "Are you going to leave? And you still haven't said goodbye to your husband?" he inquired. I hugged and kissed Jeff and, of course, responded, "How rash of me." He drew me near and said, "I need to speak with you before you leave. We had never been apart for this long before. I want you to know that I've loved you since I was 16. You're departing on a plane and I'll travel home alone. Anything is possible for us. If you never see me again, I want you to know that you are the best thing that has happened to me. Every day, I grow to love you more. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to continue living." He kissed and held me again, saying, "I love you. Have a safe travel and safely return home." I politely replied, "I love you, honey, but I have to go." Jeff grabbed me back as I turned to go. "Lauren, I know. I told you that you may go. I meant all I said. Now that you're leaving, I know that I don't want you to go. It's not too late. Tell him you are unable to accompany me home. I'm responsible for everything. Jeff, what do you think? You know I cannot give up on Mr. Beckman at this late stage. Tickets are purchased and paid for. In addition, he requires me at this lecture. I understand I'm being selfish, but I don't want you to leave." I was furious at the last possible second. He was saying he didn't want me to leave. I gave no thought to his feelings. I told Jeff that I needed to leave. Do not attempt to stop me. My decision is made. I'm embarking on this journey. I will be of tremendous assistance to Jim. I can't let him down. I gazed into his eyes. He appeared to be really unhappy. He had a very sorrowful expression. It felt like he was about to lose his best buddy. I honestly thought he was going to cry. I almost told him I was not going. Then I said, "No, I want to spend this time with Jim." I turned aside and handed the agent my boarding pass and license. She certainly listened to what Jeff told me. She looked at my license. She said, "It appears he adores you." I quickly glanced at Jim and responded, "I believe so." When I went to get my license and boarding card, she gave me a mournful look and said, "He doesn't know, does he?" "What?" I responded with obvious irritability. "What are you talking about?" "You'll destroy his heart when he discovers the truth," I informed her. "You've no idea what you're talking about." I extended my hand to take the ticket and license from her grasp. I was about to turn away when she grabbed my hand, pulled me closer to her, and said, "When he finds out, it will destroy your heart too." She continued to whisper while letting go of my hand. "Are not you ashamed, girl? The one behind you adores you, and the large one over there will destroy your heart." I strolled across the roped-off area to where Jeff and Jim were waiting for me. Jeff noticed my hot cheeks and questioned me. Jeff was always aware of my feelings and realized something was wrong. I used my sight to wave him away. Jim had no suspicions that anything was wrong. If I had thought clearly, I would have understood which man was best for me. I should have also known that Jeff could read my emotions and would have realized something was up. Jeff stayed to watch us through security. I returned his gaze one day as I placed my shoes in one of the gray plastic bins. After passing through the body scanner, I turned around to say farewell to Jeff, but he was nowhere to be found. It seemed unusual to me, but I ignored it. The flight was enjoyable, if lonely. Jim instantly fell asleep, leaving me to watch TV on the plane till we landed. We checked into our hotel, and without waiting to put our clothes away, got into the shower before making love. After we set out our clothing, I called Jeff at our home number early to let him know I had arrived safely. Strangely, no one responded, recalling what Jeff had said about not seeing each other again. I got quite worried. I called several more times, but nobody answered. I was quite worried. Finally, around 8 o'clock, my phone rang. I realized it was from Jeff. "Hi, honey, I'm delighted you phoned. I attempted to phone your home multiple times, but you did not respond. I worried about you." "Where were you?" I inquired. "I went to a nearby tavern with some co-workers. They were raving about a club and convinced me to go." "That's all," Jeff answered, unable to believe my eyes. I felt a surge of jealousy. I now see that I assumed that if I was cheating, he was as well. "You better not hit on any chicks, Jeff. Remember, you are a married man. I don't believe I could forgive you if you did that. Why do you think I'd cheat on you? Have I ever given you any reason to believe I was betraying you or our marriage? You are the person who knows me best. I could never harm you by doing anything as nasty as this. Lauren, I know you would never do anything like that to me. That's why I let you go to Florida. I fully trust you. I entrust you with my heart, even my life. You are aware of this. You understand, don't you? He inquired. Of course, honey. I am feeling the same way. I said a falsehood. I'm not sure why I said that. I know you will not do that to me, I mumbled, stammering. Look, Jeff, I'm pretty exhausted from the plane travel, and I believe it's making me irritable. You may contact me tomorrow and I'll be in a better mood, okay? Yes, of course. Lauren, we can chat again tomorrow, he answered. Good night, Jeff. I adore you. I needed to tell him that I adore him. I'm not sure why. I felt as if I was drifting away from him. I genuinely did not want to lose him. I really wanted to experience this adventure for myself. He said, "Good night, Lauren," and hung up. A thought occurred to me. Did he truly say he loved me back? I wasn't certain. I assumed he had done just that. He used to do this whenever we talked. I must have overlooked it. Jim and I made love again following Jeff's phone call. This was meant to be a true vacation. On Saturday morning after breakfast, we decided to go to the pool and sun ourselves. I bought 2 unique dresses for this vacation and opted to wear the more conservative one today. The bikini was crimson with an extremely exposing top. The bottom was no more than a big thong. I knew Jim would like it. I walked up to the pool before Jim. I made a great impression on him. I thought this was a good concept. We sat on 2 sun loungers, enjoying the sun's warmth. Jim sat down and began speaking to me about the seminars. We would start on Tuesday a.m. He leaned over and kissed me unexpectedly. We shared several more kisses. I asked Jim if he wanted to come back into the room. His face lit up with a broad smile, and he helped me stand up and grab our belongings. We giggled while holding hands like a couple in love. After dinner, we went back to our hotel to wait for Jeff's phone call. However, nobody was present that evening. For some reason, I was upset that he did not refer to Jim as impoverished. I was in such a nasty mood that he would not receive any affection tonight. On Sunday, we got up early. Jim and I wanted to go along Lammas Park's boardwalk. We were hoping to spot some movie stars frolicking on the beach. Unfortunately, we didn't see anybody. My cell phone rang as we were exiting the park just across from the hotel. I checked the phone and saw that it was Jeff. I was still upset with him for not calling last night. Jim inquired who it was, and I laughed. That moron Jim also laughed at my little joke. I've got to answer the phone. Something horrible could have occurred. Why would he call on a Sunday morning? Jeff, is everything fine? Has anything happened? I inquired. It's fine, honey. I felt lonely, and all I wanted was to hear your voice. It's comforting to know you care about me. Jeff, I always worry about you. It was Sunday morning, and I suspected something horrible had happened. You didn't make a call last night. You terrified me. I practically yelled at him. I was quite annoyed. I had no idea I would turn out like this. Lauren, you irritate me. I was aware that he was in pain. I could hear it in his voice. I experienced loneliness. I thought talking to my wife would make me feel better. I apologize for bothering you. He hung up before I could answer. Do not worry, I said into the turned-off phone. I turned off the phone and went to the nearest bench. What exactly did he want? I asked Jim. He felt lonely and wanted to chat to me. Why did I assault him that way? I questioned myself. Not Jim, but he responded nonetheless. Lauren, we've been having an affair for 6 months. Maybe you're getting tired of him. Perhaps it's time to let him go. Get a divorce. Then we could spend more time together. We will no longer have to hide. That is right. I lost my temper. Your wife will not mind if we come to your house for a matinee. Will she do it? Yeah. It's as if we no longer need to hide. I grinned as I said what came next. Jim, you earn $38,000 a year. You have no chances of achieving more since Jeff's last promotion and year-end bonus. He makes nearly $200,000 per year. I like you, Jim, but you're not particularly good. Jeff is pretty good at this, so I won't miss out on much. But someday, he will be the CEO of this bank, and I intend to be there to share it with him. There will be no divorce. Get that thought out of your head. Besides, you'll never divorce Jane. You won't abandon your 2 children either, So stop bothering me about my divorce. You are right. However, this does not mean we cannot enjoy each other's company while we are here. Jim suggested this. That is right. I smiled and took his hand. We dashed across the street to our room. After we had made love, Jim and I took a short nap. We got up, ate a quick snack, and decided to return to the pool. I told Jim that I had chosen a special outfit for today's pool visit. I hope you'll enjoy it. I wore a tangerine cape, but Jim wanted to see the entire outfit right away. I refused, saying, "You'll see this in the pool." I walked towards the pool, Jim following closely behind me. Jim sat down and I remained standing back to him. I turned around and pulled off the covers. I laughed and said, "Do you like it?" "I prefer it," Jim replied. At that point, one of the hotel employees approached us and said, "Ms., some guests complained that you were showing nudity near the pool. Such demonstrations are prohibited on hotel grounds. I have to insist that you cover yourself." Confused. I looked back at the parents of 2 small children who were staring at us. I took my cape and put it on. We left the pool area and returned to the room. We ripped our clothes off and jumped into bed. When I awoke, I saw Jim on the balcony, wearing one of the hotel's thick, tarry robes. We were making love when the phone rang. I realized it had to be Jeff and told Jim to be quiet while I spoke with him. I answered the phone on the 5th ring. "Hello, Jeff?" "Lauren?" Jeff inquired, his voice full of concern. "Are you all right? Your voice is unusual. It took you a long time to answer the phone. You seem to be out of breath." I responded quickly. I was showering when I heard the phone ring. I grabbed a towel and dashed to answer the phone. "You should have seen me sit naked on the bed. I believe you would have some inappropriate ideas." "I'm certain I would, baby. I'm calling to find out how your day went. Did you get much out of the seminar?" That was all I could muster. I was surprised. "Yes, Jeff, we had a good day at the seminar," I continued. "Honey, how was your day? I am depressed and feel sorry for myself. I miss hearing your sweet voice. I miss hugging you and kissing back. What I miss the most is having you next to me in bed at night. When you are not present to share this bed, it becomes large and lonely. I do not have to tell you this. You have the same feelings. You understand what it's like to wake up alone in the mornings." That's all I heard while Jim distracted me. I removed the phone from my face, attempted to cover the receiver, and pushed him away. He backed away, and I told him again, "Stop talking." To respond to Jeff, I raised the phone to my ear again. "That is right, honey. That is right. I said a falsehood. Listen, Jeff, I'm freezing here. I'm soaked, and I need to leave. I will talk to you tomorrow." "Fine, I adore you," I told him, as I usually do at the end of a conversation. "Right," he mumbled sarcastically. "Goodbye, Lauren." He then hung up. I did look at the phone before putting it down. I sat on the bed, brought my knees up to my chest, and wrapped my arms around my legs. I had a bad feeling about this call. Something was wrong. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Damn it, Jim. Something has happened. I ignored his distracting behavior. I was about to call Jeff back when Jim interrupted me. "What is going on with you, Lauren?" I asked Jim. "You appear to have just lost your best friend." "Maybe so." Jeff's phone call was not normal. "I have an extremely bad feeling. I hope he is unaware of us. This was the second time I told him I loved him, and he didn't reciprocate. He had never done this before. He always tells me he loves me when we hang up. The first time was on Friday. It seemed to me that he said this, but I didn't hear it tonight. I know he didn't say it on purpose. Maybe he also said this on Friday, not on purpose. If it were true, it would mean that he knows about us. He should have known before he allowed you to go on this journey. You yourself said that if he had known, he would never have let you go with me. Logic tells us that he knows nothing. You're probably right, Jim. I thought Jim was right. Jeff had no way of knowing about this, and yet deep down, I had an unpleasant feeling. Jim still wanted to make love. On Tuesday morning, Jim and I got up early and finished the first day of our workshops. When we returned that evening, we were both too tired to engage in any lovemaking. Jim actually fell asleep early while I was waiting for Jeff to call. By 10 o'clock, I was furious with him for not calling again. By 11 o'clock, fear had crept into my mind again. Did he know about this? And didn't he call on purpose? Should I call him? No. It was already too late. I thought about what Jim said yesterday and had to agree that Jeff didn't know anything. If I really believed this, then why did it take me so long to fall asleep that night? Wednesday was the same as Tuesday. We both headed back to the hotel room and ordered dinner after eating and a quick shower. Jim felt refreshed and began to pester. I was shattered. I couldn't think of anything other than waiting for Jeff's phone call when this didn't happen. I was horrified. There was no chance that he wouldn't call, 2 nights in a row. Even Jim began to worry. Jim's wife called him every day. Now he was beginning to doubt. When I didn't get a call by 9 o'clock on Thursday, I called my mom and explained to her that I hadn't heard from Jeff since Monday, and could she go home and check on Jeff? My mother said that of course she would go straight there. 30 minutes later, my cell phone rang, and it was a call from our home phone. I picked up the phone, blurting out, "Jeff, I'm so glad you finally called. Are you all right?" "It's me, Lauren," Mom answered. "Jeff isn't here." I looked around all the rooms in the house and none of them. Does he lie unconscious? All his clothing are in his closets and his computer is at his office. Could you tell me what's going on? "Nothing is happening, Mom." I said a falsehood. We had a brief dispute on the phone, and I think Jeff is furious at me. I'm confident everything will be all right when I eventually talk to him. I'm happy to know he's not laying unconscious in one of the rooms, like you said. If you hear anything from him, please ask him to phone me. I'll ask Lauren. This is very unlike him. You must have said or done something pretty horrible if he didn't call you for 3 days. "No, Mom, nothing that horrible. Just ask him to call if you see him. Thank you for doing this for me. See you when I get home while Mom..." "Well, okay. Honey, I miss you and can't wait to see you on Saturday. Good night, Lauren." After my mom's phone call, I got even more frightened. Where the hell could he be? Why wasn't he home? I understood that I would have to wait 2 more days to find out unless he contacted. Or I could reach out to him. I decided to call both his home number and his cell phone. I have voicemail on both phone lines. I left pleading messages on both lines, telling him I missed him and couldn't wait to speak with him. I also stated that if he's angry with me for any reason, we could discuss it when I get home. Also, please do not make any rash decisions. I was beginning to think that my marriage might be over. Friday seemed to drag on indefinitely. I wasn't surprised that nobody called that evening. I tried calling both my home phone and Jeff's cell phone but couldn't get through. Needless to say, sullen Jim did not receive anything that night. On Saturday morning, I was up early. Before Jim woke up, I had packed my belongings and dressed. We left the room to check out around 11 a.m. when the elevator doors opened into the lobby. When I looked at the front desk, I noticed the clerk pick up his phone and make a call. He spoke briefly before hanging up. As we approached the front desk, Jim handed the clerk our key cards and his credit card. The name of the bad guy on the clerk's shirt was Carlos. Carlos returned Jim's credit card and asked him to sign some paperwork. What he said next reduced my brain to mush. He ambushed us by saying, "Mr. Beckman, Mrs. Carlson, I hope you enjoyed your stay at the Victor Hotel, and I look forward to seeing you again soon." When I heard him say my real name, my mind went blank. All I could do was look at him and ask, "What did you call me?" "You are Mrs. Carlson, correct?" he asked with a sly smile. My intelligent response was, "Why do you think that?" He displayed 2 photographs on the counter in front of us. One of the photos was of Jim sitting in a hotel restaurant. The other was of me, taken on the day I attempted to sunbathe topless by the pool. My bare breasts were clearly visible in the image. Carlos went on to describe how he obtained these photographs. Some man approached me and inquired whether I knew the people in the photographs. I said yes. I informed him that you are registered as the Beckmans. You are well known here after flaunting your naked charms last Monday. This person continued to tell me that I was wrong. He identified the man in the photo as Jim Beckman. However, the woman with him is not Jim's wife, but rather Lauren Carlson. He was present. Jeff was present. "When did he arrive here?" I inquired. Carlos gave me another look that I couldn't comprehend. "Allow me to see." Carlos logged into his computer and informed me that a Mr. Jeff Carlson checked in last Friday at 4 o'clock and checked out on Tuesday at noon. "Oh my God, Jim, he stayed here all weekend." I said something. Carlos turned to me and inquired, "You are Mrs. Carlson, correct?" "Yes, this is true." Strangely, I expressed shame. "Okay, in that case, I have something to offer you." Carlos gave the same strange smile as he handed me an envelope. I gave him a look. It was not addressed to anybody. I opened the envelope and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I opened it up and read the 3 words printed on it. Lorenzo, Ari, and Half Duke. I felt like I was going to pass out and leaned on Jim for support. After assisting me in calming down, he grabbed the paper from my hands and read it. As he murmured to me, I noticed a frightened expression on his face. "Lauren, please get away of here." Carlos summoned Jim just as we were leaving. "Mr. Beckman, I've got an envelope for you too." He extended his hand containing an envelope. Jim stared at him for quite some time. I understand he didn't want to touch it. Jim finally took it. I pulled out the paper from within and read it. Jim read it, turned to look out the window at Ocean Avenue, and dropped the paper almost unintentionally to the ground. I took the piece of paper and read it. "You expected to get away with it, idiot. I just spent the last 2 hours with your wife this morning. I don't think you'll have the homecoming you were looking for. I presented her with all of my evidence. This is just the beginning. I will do anything in my power to make your life a living nightmare." Jim was still staring out the window. As I was putting my handbag away, I snapped 2 images and letters for Jim and myself. Carlos picked up the phone and asked, "Did you hear that?" I glanced at him and he asked, "Is this everything you expected? That's okay, sir. I hope to see you back in Victor. You have made your stay here quite interesting. And the same for you, sir. Goodbye." "Was he my husband?" I inquired. Carlos smiled at me again but said nothing. I informed Jim, "Come on now, we need to catch a plane on our route to the airport." I made a call to my mother. I requested her to meet us at JFK Airport. My mother said, "Won't Jeff pick you up?" "I'm not sure, ma'am. We did had a fight, and I know he's unhappy with me right now. Honey, I can't believe it's like that. Lauren, Jeff would never leave you in trouble." My mother spoke now with distrust in her voice. "What were you fighting about?" "Nothing, Mom. You don't need to worry. This is ridiculous. If he didn't pick you up, it had to be serious. Plus a visit to your residence to check where he was on Thursday night. No phone calls. It had to be large." Then she said with fear in her voice, possibly aware of what had occurred. She inquired out loud, "Oh God, Lauren, what have you done?" I started sobbing. "I done nothing that couldn't be corrected. Please come to the airport in case Jeff does not show up. If you did what I believe you did, he will not be there. Don't worry. I'll pick you up." She hung up. I don't recall anything about the taxi ride to the airport or passing through security and boarding the plane. It was as if my mind had simply turned off and I was on autopilot. I didn't have any distinct thoughts until we got flying. Once my mind began to function again, I brought out photographs of Jim and myself. This was clear when my picture was taken. Jeff should have witnessed what transpired between me and Jim on Monday. Then I focused on Jim's shot. He was sitting in a booth, wearing a black shirt. He only wore this shirt once, on a Monday night at the hotel restaurant. A shudder raced down my spine. Jeff must have been the person wearing a Mets cap and clutching a camera if he'd witnessed everything we did on Monday. I would have known that divorce was likely in my future. Something else troubled me about Jeff's letter to me. He declared himself a nerd. I called him a moron once. That is when I answered his phone call on Sunday. He must have connected us to the music in some way. I can't imagine what he'd do if he heard what we said. I could only hope he'd pick me up at Kennedy Airport and take me home. I believed the possibilities of this happening were small. Jim sat next to the window. Every time I looked at him, he was staring out the window, but I knew he wasn't seeing much. I spent the majority of the flight home looking over letters and images. I kept thinking about the phone calls I'd received from Jeff if he was in Miami. Who knows what he saw and heard? This ignorance made me afraid. The most scary part was the last phone call. That night, I realized something wasn't right. There was something wrong with this call. His demeanor was odd, and I missed something. Now I realized how crucial it was, and Jim's distraction made me regret it. After repeating everything in my thoughts, I concluded I couldn't do anything until I saw Jeff again. When the plane touched down, I couldn't wait to get out. I dashed through the terminal till I exited the security zone. If Jeff was going to pick me up, I needed to see him. There was a short ramp that led to the lobby where Jeff should be waiting. As I stepped down the ramp, I quickly prayed. I noticed my mother waiting for me. I inquired, "Is Jeff here?" Mom shook her head from left to right, saying, "No." Jim followed straight behind me. I looked around and did not see Jane. He appeared despondent. He hurriedly grabbed his phone and called his wife. "Jane." "Hello? This is me. Will you be picking me up?" he inquired. He listened for a bit before terminating the call. He glanced at us and said she had hung up. She refuses to come. He stepped up to the bench and placed his hands over his face. I was positive he was crying. Mom approached Jim, grabbed his hand, and said, "Come on, I will take both of you home." My mother continued to shoot scathing eyes at me as we drove home. One day I turned to face Jim. He stared out the window, tears streaming down his cheeks like mine. I was thinking, he believed the vacation was a terrible idea. It's definitely not worth it. When I reached home, I had no idea if Jeff would be there. I asked Jim to stay in the car. At this point, confrontation would be detrimental if not impossible. I sprinted into the home, shouting, "Jeff, I'm home!" There was no answer. "Jeff, have you arrived?" I phoned him again. Silence. I dashed through the house looking for Jeff. I walked into our bedroom and discovered his closet and chest of drawers were empty. In a hurry, I dashed by my mother at the dinner table and headed straight to Jeff's office. When I looked around the room, I knew I was in trouble. The office was vacant. When I realized he had left, I came into the living room and sat down on a chair. It only took a few moments for the realization that he had 4 days to plan to sink in. Removing his clothing and personal items may only be the beginning. What else has he done? Finally, I turned and stared at my mom. She was standing at the dining table holding an envelope. Mom gave me the papers. Jeff's handwritten sign simply said divorce papers. She then handed me a jewelry case with paper attached to it. The letter stated that if you want to understand why, watch the DVD. Mom had already grabbed the disc from the case and walked over to the television. She turned on the TV and DVD player, then inserted a CD into the slot. She took the remote control and sat down in the news section. Jeff pretended resistance before swiftly giving in and encouraging me to choose her. Now I understand that he always provided me what I desired without difficulty, before Mom could start watching the DVD. Jim answered the door and inquired, "Is everything all right?" "No, Jeff isn't here." His clothing were also gone. It looks like he abandoned me. I'm sorry it got to this. I'll call for a taxi and wait outside. I have to return home and attempt to fix my marriage. Lauren remarked, "I only hope I can, Jim. I'm just hoping I can." He muttered this as he walked out the door. I hoped he could do it for his children. Mom started watching the DVD after Jim had departed. I sat down next to my mom. We viewed everything he recorded on the trip. I apologized. "I am sorry, Mom. I don't know how I allowed this to happen." She gave me a disgusted expression. I imagined how shocked she must be at my depravity. My heart plummeted as I considered how my mother may have felt witnessing my crime. The next scenario was the worst. I finally heard on the phone what I had missed that evening. There was no video, but Jeff must have taped his segment of the chat. Jeff asked if Lauren spends her nights alone. Then I heard a faint chat. Jeff then asked again, "Lauren, are you present? You sleep alone, right?" It was spoken with such hatred that I would have realized he was aware. "Thanks, Jim. That's something I've never heard before. That was all I said." "That is right, honey. It's true." In the following scene, a hand was seen covering the camera lens, indicating that he was removing it from the tripod. The image on the screen moved erratically. Finally, I came to a halt and looked out the sliding glass door to the balcony. It appeared to have been positioned on the table. Jeff reappeared, sat down in a chair, disassembled the microphone, and began folding the tripods, placed them in a black canvas bag. Jeff turned his head back to look into the darkness. I noticed the misery on his face. He bowed his head, and for approximately 5 seconds, I could hear faint sobbing. He then appeared to compose himself, wiping his eyes with the edge of his t-shirt. Then he said out to himself, "Jeff, this is the second time she has done this to you. This will never occur again." Then he stood up, stepped towards the camera, and the screen went black. Fortunately, the show had ended. He expertly exposed my infidelity. Nobody was more stunned than my mother, who hung her head and sobbed softly. Except for me. No one else was as sad. I saw Jeff's tears. I was consumed with self-loathing. I was perplexed by his second statement. I had no idea he had previously cried because of me. When he said it would never happen again, I was terrified. I am afraid for what I caused to my marriage. Mom inquired, "What are you going to do now? Do you want to save your marriage or go off with that guy on the street?" "Mom, I love Jeff. Of sure I wish to save my marriage. I'm not going away with Jim. He has 1 wife and 2 children. He will never abandon them. He will not determine whether to save his marriage. It will not be up to you to save your marriage. It is up to your husband if you still have it. He had several days to make a decision. You've already got divorce papers on your dining table. What else did he consider of doing? If you really want to go, Jeff, you should speak with him soon and give him a strong reason to take you back. I wouldn't want to wait too long. He's already got a considerable lead. I dialed Jeff's cell phone number as soon as Mom left. He had not returned any of my phone calls, and I wasn't sure he would now. I was determined to try. Surprisingly, he responded after the second call. His speech was devoid of both fury and emotion. "Lauren, what exactly do you want?" he inquired. "Jeff, we should chat. Will you talk to me?" "Sure." "Lauren, when would you like to start this conversation? Tomorrow. You can come at any time." "Okay, Lauren, tomorrow at 2. Goodbye. Get to the point." I thought I disliked the lack of emotion in his voice. His voice sounded really icy. It seemed as if he'd made a decision and had no plans to change it. He was intending to finish the confrontation as soon as possible. If I were wearing boots, I would be shaking. I knew it wouldn't be easy. The next afternoon, I peered out the window to see his car come into the driveway. Instead, enter through the front door. He went around the side of the house and entered by the rear entrance. I dashed into the kitchen and sat down at the table set for dinner. Jeff walked through the door. I believe he was shocked to find me seated there. "Hello, Jeffrey. Thank you for meeting with me today." He nodded in answer. He sat down at the table, examined the table arrangement, and then returned to me with a questioning expression. "I suspected you would be hungry. I have prepared lunch in the refrigerator, if you wish to eat." He shook his head, saying, "I already ate," and pushed the plate away. He glanced at me again, and the expression on his face spoke to me. "You wanted to talk. So chat." I started, "Jeff, I'd like to say no. I need to apologize." Jeff was ready to respond, but I stopped him off. "I know what you'll say. Sorry for being caught or for cheating." I knew I was correct based on his expression. "Yes, I'm sorry I was caught, but not for the reasons you may expect. I regret that I began cheating in the first place. What troubles me the most is the pain on your face as a result of my idiotic acts. The realization that I created this is tearing me apart. Will you forgive me, Jeff? Even if you do, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to forgive myself." I waited for Jeff to speak, but he said nothing. As I waited for an answer, I could see his countenance flicker with pain, fury, perplexity, and even love. When he finally spoke, I was astonished at what he said. "Do you realize that when I awoke in the morning, I lay in bed and watched you sleep? Or once I finished showering, I'd sit in a chair next to the bed and watch you." I knew he had done it. I caught him multiple times. Sometimes I opened one eye and questioned, "What?" He smiled and chuckled, approaching me and kissed my forehead. "You looked so serene laying there, even lovely, at least to me." I'd glance at your face. I gaze into your eyes and notice every curve of your face, how your nostrils flared and your mouth opened slightly, like if you were dreaming about me. Now I am thinking about him. I thought how fortunate I was to have you in my life. My guardian angels brought you to me to bring color and brightness to my otherwise gray existence. You snatched it from me. The color and light vanished. Since Wednesday, every morning when I wake up, I smile to myself and think how blessed I am to have you and how much I love you until I roll over to look for you and you aren't there. Then I remembered. I remember what you said, and the anguish returns. Since then, this has occurred every morning. The only difference is that each morning I love you somewhat less, and the agony is not as intense. I recognize that my mother was correct. I have waited too long. Maybe if I came home on Wednesday night, I could talk to him and possibly change anything. It appears that I am now late. He repeated what happened in his brain and decided to divorce. This is the last thing I want to. Please, Jeff, do not make a hasty decision. I know I was horrible and do not deserve any attention, but I ask you, give me an opportunity to make things up to you. Give me a chance to prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve. Please give me a second opportunity. I gazed at him, hoping for a response. I noticed tears well up in his eyes, and then one rolled down his cheek. I reached up and wiped a tear from his face with my thumb. I vowed you would never make me cry again. But now look at me. He commented sadly. Jeff, I heard you say on the DVD that this was the second time you cried over me. Lauren, when did I first fall in love with you? When you stepped out of your father's automobile. This is the first time I saw you. My favorite recollections are from the summer we spent together. My worst memory is of you leaving me during the harvest dance. You fooled me and abandoned me for another person. Exactly like this moment. You left me to face scorn from Billy Barber and the rest of the football squad. I'm not sure how many nights I cried in my bed where no one could see me, so on Monday night, I cried for you for the second time. The tear that has just fallen appears to be for the third time. I apologize, Jeff. I feel like I'm saying this a lot today. This may sound ridiculous to you, but there was a bodily pull. I will never see him again and will not miss him at all. All I need is for you to stay by my side. I do not know, Lauren. I witnessed what you did. He shook his head sadly and admitted, I know I can't compete with that. I will not compete against another man. I'm not going to compete with that other man's memory for my wife. If we stay together, I'll be constantly battling with his spirit, attempting to measure up to your other man. You don't need to compete with anyone. You won't understand until it happens to you. Jeff shook his head sadly again and began to get up from his seat. I thought he was going to depart. I witnessed my marriage go up in smoke. I'm not sure what came over me. I sprang out of my chair, knocking it over. I ran up to Jeff and gave him a bare embrace that I wouldn't let go of. All this time, I mumbled, Don't leave, Jeff. Please do not abandon me now. When I saw your letter at the motel, I understood what I was doing. I learned that you and my marriage are what matters. Please forgive and accept me back. He gave me a free hug and lovingly stroked my hair. After a while, he rested his hands on my shoulders and gently drew me away from him so he could look me in the eyes while speaking to me. When I thought of us in the future, I imagined the two of us together. The home is encircled by white picket fences, exactly as in the movies. We'd have 2 sons and a girl like you, whom I could spoil. She would have me wrapped around her little finger, just as her mother had. I've watched us plan weddings, commemorate anniversaries, and mark special birthdays. I observed us grow old together and how our love helped us get through difficult times. Now I am unable to see anything. I have a huge dark hole where love once was. I can see the terrible darkness of existence without you. He stepped away, saying, I need to go. I need to do something. Do not go. We have a lot to talk about. No, I need to compose a thank you note. What letter possibly be more important than attempting to repair our marriage? And who should you address the letter to? Ron Millsap. Why? What does he have to do with it? He assisted me in leaving my unfaithful wife. He turned and walked out the door, humming a song that I later discovered was a stranger in my home. 5 years later, my wife requested me to take her car to the front of the home. We were headed to my folks' place for a Memorial Day celebration. I strolled out the back door, past a freshly constructed 10-car garage, to a bluff overlooking the beach below, Long Island Sound, and the Connecticut coast. I no longer lived in a leased house on Nassau's beachfront, but rather in the ancient town, Mattoontown, in the garage. I needed to determine which car I wanted to drive to my folks. My attention fell on garage number 5. I pressed the remote control and stepped aside as the door opened to reveal my latest acquisition. I closed the door and started the engine. I adored the sound of the powerful, rebuilt Ford 390 V8 engine. The automobile pulled out of the garage. I lowered the convertible top and pulled into the circular driveway in front of the house. I got out of the car and turned to face the current target of my devotion. The 1961 Ford Thunderbird convertible has bright chrome, black paint, interior, and canopy. God, it was wonderful. My wife opened the door, frowning. My child is in. I cannot drive with the top down. You'll need to pick it up. I mentioned it to Nina. Okay, I will put it up. But it looks much cooler with the top down. If you ever want me to ride with the top down again, you better put it up now. My mind returned to the day I first drove the car, and we went for a drive with the top down, and Nina lowered her top while I swiftly hit the button to raise it. Nina smiled smugly. She knew how to unleash her incredible feminine strength. I met Nina 2 months before my divorce from Lauren was finalized. Mr. Diamond, the bank's president, agreed on only one thing with his ex-wife, their adopted child from Romania. Even though they detested each other, they both adored this young daughter. The Gems established a charity to benefit Romanian orphans. I knew I was supposed to participate in a $1,000 per plate fundraiser because I had become Mr. Diamond's favorite. I was seated at his table, next to his wife. There was an empty area beside me. Before I sat down, I looked at the card on the table which said, "Reserved for me, Kiara Nova." As I sat down, I said hello to Mr. Diamond and gently kissed the former Mrs. Diamond on the cheek. I looked at my boss again, who had a sly smile on his face. It seemed like only seconds had passed before this beauty in black took the seat next to me. Mr. Diamond's face was glowing, and he never stopped smiling while he presented me to Janina. Kiara Nova, Victoria's Secret lingerie models. Nina was a Romanian orphan who served on the charity's board. That evening, Nina and I hit it off. We spoke about our lives. She told me about her horrible experiences in Romanian orphanages. I believe she nearly brought me to tears. I wanted to cuddle and protect her. She later informed me that she sensed my sensitivity and wanted to learn more about me. This evening, many single guys invited her to dance, but she refused. I did not invite her since I assumed she did not want to dance. Nina took matters into her own hands and asked me to dance. I answered, "Of course." We dated for 2 years before we married. The wedding was held at Mr. Diamond's estate in Southampton, New York. I believed his wife was too young for him. He was 35 years old, not 61, but he constantly smiled. So, what do I know? We had a wonderful first year until Nina approached me and said she wanted to have a kid. I asked her if she was aware that having a baby would put her modeling career on wait for a long time. She looked me directly in the eyes and said, "The only thing I want more than anything in the world is to have a child with you." She smiled widely as she continued, "Maybe more than one?" I'm sure a large smile flashed on my face when I recommended that we start trying today. We both giggled and dashed into the bedroom. A year and a half later, our son, Jeff Jr., was born. We got in the car after putting Jeff Jr. in the back seat. The only non-standard component on the T-Bird was the air conditioning unit I fitted. I knew from experience that once Nina changed her clothes, she didn't want anything to mess up her hair. She'd sooner ride a horse in 100-degree heat than have her hair tousled. Installing air conditioning would have made things more pleasant for both of us. When we walked into my father's backyard, he was grilling burgers and sausages. I was surprised to see Lauren and her mother, Cheryl, sitting at the table talking to my mother. Nina carried Jeff Jr. in her arms, walked over to the table, and sat. Mom hurriedly retrieved her cherished and only grandson from Nina. I approached my father and asked, "What the hell are they doing here?" My father said, "Speak quietly. Your mother invited them. She and Cheryl had grown close after Frank's death. Lauren was all alone, so your mother invited her. You know, she had a difficult time getting rid of that jackass Billy Barber after you two separated. I knew she married Billy after I met Nina. I did not believe she was so foolish, so she truly cheated on me with that asshole Beckman. I felt certain he would have gotten divorced. Instead, his wife accepted him back. She has 2 children to worry about. It should matter. For a long period, I hired a private investigator to follow him. Every time he was on the verge of landing a decent job, I propagated stories about his being a lousy worker, and he lost. This lasted until he or his wife realized that I must have played a role in his sequence of failures. Jane Beckman called and asked me directly if Jim's lack of job opportunities had anything to do with my vendetta. Before I could answer, she explained that it had harmed not only Jim, but also her and her 2 children. She went on to add that she thought what he did to me was terrible, but she didn't lash out at his children. I didn't tell her right away that I was involved, but I did say that I was confident that he would be able to find work more easily now. She thanked me sincerely and apologized for destroying my marriage. I have no idea what he's doing now that I let the detective go, along with all of my leftover animosity for him. It was a huge relief to be free of the luggage I was hauling. I picked up my baby from Nina and greeted Lauren and Cheryl before strolling over to the bench near the kitchen's rear entrance. A few moments later, Cheryl Schiavo sat next to me and extended her arms to hug Jeff Jr. We sat quietly while she played with my 8-month-old son. Finally, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "He should have been my grandson. I would be the best granny." Do you know that, Jeff? I paid great attention to Cheryl Schiavo. She has aged over the last 5 years. I knew our divorce was hard on her. She had always liked me, and she was overjoyed when Lauren and I got married. I knew it would be true, Mom. You were a wonderful mother to Lauren, and I am confident you would have made an excellent grandmother. Thank you, Jeffrey. I have missed you for the past 5 years. Congratulations on your promotion at the bank. Your father informed me that you are now in second place there. Yes, Mr. Diamond eventually resigned under some pressure from the board of directors. They promoted Howard Goldman to the top position, and he brought me on as executive vice president in charge of operations. Basically, if I can keep my nose clean after Howard leaves, I should run for president. Lauren wanted to speak with you, but she was afraid to approach. Can I tell her it's all right? Of course, Mom, I replied. 5 people have passed away. I am confident we can communicate civilly. Lauren's mother returned to the table and spoke with her before she could get up. Nina approached me and said, "Be gentle with her, Jeff. She is extremely fragile. Do not upset her." I nodded in agreement. Nina moved aside as Lauren approached. "Hello, Jeffrey. You look nice." "Hello, Lauren. You too. Nina is stunning, Jeff. A good man both inside and out. I can say thank you. I am fortunate to have 2 wonderful wives. This is not true. I might have been attractive on the outside, but not so much on the inside. This is not true. You are beautiful both inside and out. Jim Beckman dazzled you. I am sure I did something to drive you away. This is simply not true. Do you recall what I did at the dance with Billy Barber? What were you doing there? No, that was me. There is something within me that ruins all good things. Something not so beautiful. Let us change the theme. Mom informed me that you received another promotion at work. I knew you would make it to the top. Well, a lot of good has happened to me over the last 5 years. I smiled as I returned my gaze to Lauren. I noticed that she was also looking at Nina. She turned to me and smiled at Jeff. There is one thing I want to clarify from that time. 5 years ago. I did not want to go there, but she brought it up. It was a phone conversation during which I called you an idiot. I want you to know that this is the first time I've called you that. To this day, I have no idea why I did it. That was not why I began talking about that day. This was what I told Jim about you that day. I informed him that you would become president of the bank and how much money you would make. I realized it sounded like I was only interested in being with you for the money. This was not what I had in mind. I knew you'd succeed. I've always been very proud of you. I just wanted to be there when you achieved your goal. This is what I wanted to share with you. It was never about money. Please believe it was not about the money. When I originally heard it, I assumed it was about money. That was until I told Nina what you said. She was the one who suggested I had done everything wrong. She assumed, based on your expression, that you were not humiliating me, and you are bragging about me to Jim. It made me feel much better about you. I believe that's when I began to forgive. There's one more thing I want to thank you for. What's this? I inquired what you'd done for Jane Beckman. She called me and cried about what you did to Jim. She asked me to call you, but I told her it was best if she did it herself. I gave her your telephone number at the bank. She called to let me know that Jim had finally found a job that would support them. She asked me to thank her. I'm glad everything went smoothly. I never thought about her or the kids. I'm relieved it's finished. I stood up and hugged Lauren as we approached the table. Lauren was crying happy tears, and Nina was beaming at me joyously. We sat at the table and had a nice day. On our way home that evening, we had the convertible top-up, but Nina had it down. It was another fantastic day. Thank you for taking the time to hear today's story. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe if you have not already. If you have a story to share regarding your or someone else's situation, please do not hesitate to contact me.